Hello everybody, here we are today talking about who should win the Norris Trophy, Quinn Hughes, Roman Josi, or Cale Makar. But before we get started with it, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So at this point, we are continuing on with our NHL award videos as the final game potentially of the year is going to be on for the Stanley Cup Final tonight. But we are going to be talking about this, and we've already covered the Calder and the Vezina, and now we're getting into the Norris Trophy, which, if you don't know what that is, if you're new to the league, it basically goes to the best defenseman. Now, this is where things get tricky, however, as you will see. This doesn't necessarily mean just defensive play. This seems to be something people get hung up on every single year, where you might have a player that is not the best defensive player out of the group of defensemen, and it goes to somebody that has the best all-around involvement. So looking at all this, I think this is probably one of the more intriguing awards. I think the Vezina is my favorite, and I said that in a recent video, but this one is probably the most fun to see how people argue, because for whatever reason, feels like every year people are going to argue about this one the most. So with that being said, let's talk about the three finalists and get into who I think should win. So the first player we're talking about here is Quinn Hughes. Now, Quinn is an interesting player because he's never won the Norris as opposed to Cale Makar and Roman Josi. However, he is somebody that has made an impact in the NHL already, especially for the Canucks, as he has 4 seasons with 50 points or more, and it would be 5 seasons in a row, but it was a shortened year, but he was still on a 50-plus point pace. This year proved to be another good year for him with a career-high 92 points and a goal differential of 85, plus 85, mind you. So things were really incredible for him, and he played a lot of minutes on a team that was competing for the President's Trophy. Didn't end up getting there, but they were still the second seed out west. Now, did the season end the way Vancouver fans were hoping for? No, it didn't, as they ended up falling in the second round to the Edmonton Oilers in Game 7. They were on the verge of the Western Conference Final. They weren't able to get there. Had they been able to get there, would they have gone on to win the Cup? We'll never know, but this would be a great way to end the season for Canucks fans, to finish the last chapter of the book, if you will, for 2023-2024, that campaign, with having a guy like Hughes end up going out there and winning the Norris. Now, if he goes out there and doesn't win it, is it the end-all be-all? Not necessarily, as he has 330 points in his past 360 games played, and this seems to be something where he continues to grow, and you'd have to imagine with him being young and coming off of a 92-point season, there's probably going to be a lot of opportunities in the future for him to be able to go out there and contend to win the Norris, maybe multiple times. Is he necessarily a lock to go out there and win it? We'll never really know for sure, but yeah, having a player of his caliber that is this young on a team that looks like they could be competitive going forward, hopefully, fingers crossed anyway, you'd have to imagine he's got a chance, and he does lead the finalist in terms of points. I think the biggest knock for Quinn at the moment would be the fact that he doesn't necessarily play that physical game. We've already talked about this a lot on this channel. For somebody that plays a lot of minutes, he doesn't block shots and he doesn't lay a lot of hits, but still, this is not necessarily going to the most physical player, somebody that is been the best all around. Now, for Roman Josi, the Swiss player is again a finalist for the Norris, as this is the third time in 5 seasons, that he's been able to do this, and he ended up winning it actually back in 2020. And since that time, he ended up scoring 240 points in 229 games played. That is good. And this year proved to be another good year for him, as he had over 20 goals, over 60 assists, and over 80 points. All of these things are really great to see, and he played in every single game for a Nashville team that rode the hot hand into the playoffs, as they weren't necessarily a playoff lock, and there was talk about whether or not Juuse Saros would be traded, because there was just some other players in this group that you're like, man, if they end up not making it to the postseason, would we be better off just shipping them out? Instead, they were able to be hot, and Josi was able to play a character in that. The only problem is they didn't really do anything in the postseason. I do think a talking point here would be the fact that if you're a person that thinks the league is rigged in some way, sometimes you'll see awards given out and you're like, man, should they have necessarily won it? And I think in this case, with Josi already winning the Norris before, probably hurts his chances of winning it again, because if he hadn't done it before, then you'd have him and 2 young guys where you're like, man, is this going to be his last opportunity? Because at this point, he is now officially 34 years old on a team that are they going to be competitive year in and year out? Because part of that recognition seems to come from either getting a lot of points or having team success. And in all reality, it usually comes from getting points, which Josi has been able to do, but you're still looking at this and wondering what are his odds going to be, because this was a good year, but you have both of these other players like Makar and Hughes. They were able to get more points than him, and I think a knock for him at the moment would be the fact that he played like 40 minutes on the PK this year. But I just want to emphasize this again. This is not an award given out because you are some 240-pound behemoth defenseman that just lays these big hits and blocks all these shots and is just a monster defensively all the time, you can be a smaller defenseman and go out and win this award. And with a guy like Josi, he is somebody that is older, that you do know it might be a little bit harder for him to win this, but he does have more goals than Makar or Hughes, and over the past 3 seasons has been at a 23-goal pace in that time. So I don't want to discredit what he's been able to do. A great career so far. I would have liked to see him win a cup with Nashville, but I do got to be honest here, I don't see that happening. So maybe at some point in the future, in the maybe near future, medium future, or the far future, distant future if you will, he gets shipped out. But for now, of course, Nashville fans haven't had a whole lot to celebrate in recent years. Him winning the Norris would be cool. And then you have Cale Makar. Now, Makar is another fun name because he's already won a Norris back in 2022 and has been a finalist for the award over the past 3 seasons. He had 90 points, 23 goals. Things were going really well for him. And he also had something that the other two didn't, which was the ability to draw more penalties while also not taking many. He just took 8 penalties this season, but he drew 25. I really like to see that. On top of that, too, he had a pretty healthy margin in terms of giveaways and takeaways. And to see somebody be able to force turnovers more for themselves in terms of not, giving away the puck, especially in your defensive zone, but also being able to take advantage of that for a team like Colorado that has a lot of speed, that is all really good. And he played a lot more minutes than the other two did on the PK. I think if you paired Hughes's and then Josi's minutes together on the PK and then doubled it, it would still be less or about comparative to Makar. So that's kind of something interesting to throw out there if you more of that old school, yeah, this seems like a good thing for me. And I gotta be honest, I can't even necessarily say that his time on the PK was always super effective, as he didn't always see the best results. But looking at this, he played a lot of minutes and tough minutes for a Colorado team that really needed him to step up, and he was able to do that again. Now, seeing what he's done in recent years, you're hopeful to say, oh, this guy is going to be able to do so much in the future. And one thing that I'll throw out here that is really random is out of all 90 points, only one of them was an empty netter, so I like that as well. But kind of circling back to him and Quinn Hughes, they are young defensemen that have very, very bright futures. And looking at a guy like Makar, he's probably going to be a finalist for, the foreseeable future, as he has been able to be that guy for the entirety of the time that he's entered the league, is what it feels like. So with Cale, you're already seeing an incredible career, and you're wondering if this summer goes by and he's able to win this, how great his career could go on to be as a defenseman, probably averaging over a point per game, being at that point a 2-time Norris winner and then a Stanley Cup champion. If he doesn't win it this year, again, not the end-all be-all. I think it'd matter more for Hughes because you'd say, well, I'm Cale Makar, I have a Norris. Whereas you would say, if you're Quinn Hughes, I don't, and I don't even have a Stanley Cup, which is really the broad scheme of things the most important thing. And for Cale, it's already a lot of accolades and achievements at a very, very young age. So with all that being said, what exactly are my thoughts? Who do I think should win this trophy? I gotta be honest, I don't have an answer. The other two, I did have answers, and I think a lot of times it feels like it's a little bit easier, but I feel like my opinion could be swayed for multiple finalists. I think with Roman Josi, you could probably go out there and argue and say, well, yeah, he played with less talented players and still had a good year. Although you do wonder, again, with what the other two were able to do, why he would necessarily be the winner of this. Whereas Makar and Hughes, yeah, I'd probably say it's a little bit closer. They had more points. And then looking at a guy like Cale Makar, goal scorer, fast skater on a team that is a nightly watch, or you need to watch him on a nightly basis. And a lot of that is from Cale Makar being a great player, but he's playing with some of the best players in the world. And that is a testament not only to the league and the talent in the NHL, but the fact that he is playing on one of the better teams in the league. So you could say, well, he's benefiting from that. Whereas if you're looking at Quinn Hughes, really good year for sure, but as a Canucks fan, I'd say, am I being a little biased and saying, oh, well, I feel like he should win this because he is so deserving, when the reality is he is deserving. But at the same time, too, I don't want to say that I'm too biased in that regard. So I'm just going to go out there and say 3 good candidates. I feel like, Makar had a lot of things going for him, but we're just going to leave it up in the air at the moment. So anyway, who do you think should win the Norris Trophy, and who do you think is going to win Game 6 tonight? Do you think that the Oilers force Game 7, and do you think that the Panthers would either instead go on to win tonight in 6, or if they win in 7? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe, have a great night, and you go love hockey, alright. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.